Hey, we're back with three more conversations. Today, we spent some time with Chris Raymond, who's got a book out about Penn State and how they rebuilt their football program. And then we spent some time with Scott G Shea. And Scott, a couple of weeks ago, was talking to me about a book project that he was going to be doing about Fleetwood Mac. And all of a sudden, his PR department writes to me and says, you want to talk to him about this book? And I'm going, yeah. And I was so shocked to learn so many things about Fleetwood Mac. And now he begins the journey of writing this book. So he's doing some pre-promoting is what he's doing. And then we spent some time with Just Isaac, who's got a book out called Traffic Fight. And it's about human trafficking. But he does it in a positive way. And he inspires you to want to get involved. This is my day of play. Thanks for being here and thanks for supporting it.
Yep, that's right.
Yep. Exactly. Arrow, you there? The button is on the bottom left of the screen. There you go.
Listen to you.
All right, take it away, my friend. 18 minutes.
Good morning, Chris. How are you doing today?
Good, Arrow. How about you?
Absolutely fantastic and very excited to talk with you because I'm so proud of you for putting this book together because I live or act the life of a Penn State warrior, basically. We don't know the story anymore. And you are bringing it forward saying, hey, look, something has happened that is brilliant, and it's the body, the students that really made this work.
Yeah, as a Penn State alum, a lifelong sort of fan of the program, as you can imagine, in 2011 when the news about Jerry Sandusky first broke, I was heartbroken, gut wrenched, and then really sort of confused and shocked, right, when the national media descended on the campus, and really kind of the story heated up so fast. People were kind of pushing for heads. You lost longtime coach Joe Paterno, you lost the athletic director, you lost the university president. They were all kind of let go. And I'm not going to argue that shouldn't have happened. But I think for those kids on the program, that was like, their whole world had been turned upside down. And for alums like me, it was the same thing. We were looking for answers, trying to wrap our heads around what happened. And all of a sudden, like the whole thing imploded in a matter of months. And so when the NCAA came forward and issued those sanctions, and people were talking about the death penalty, it was hard to kind of wrap your head around that. And the fact that these players, all of like 18, 19, 20 years old, kind of stepped forward in front of the cameras in the entire world and said, hey, one man didn't build this program. One man's not going to tear this program around. My heart went out to those. I was inspired by that, as were a lot of my friends. And so, when I wanted to do a book, I thought I wanted to kind of take a look at those players that stepped forward in 2012 and that Big Ten championship win in 2016 and say, can I connect the dots? Wow. I think there might be a pretty good story there. And I was lucky. There was a great story there.
Is it still an open wound? Is it a black eye? Or are we in the moments of healing? Because, with you just sharing that, I'm going, oh, my God, I was there. I felt that. I know the emotion he's talking about. Oh, my God.
I feel like it was a healing, in particular, when that Big Ten championship in 2016, that team won. I feel like that kind of said, okay, the program has survived. We have talent that's still sort of coming in. We have a program that's able to compete at the, not just the national level, but the top national level, right? They were a team that people were considering for the playoffs at that moment. And so I do feel like for the average Penn State fan, yes, that healing has happened. I'm not going to sort of speak for sort of the victims of the crimes, that Jerry Sandusky committed. I think there's still a lot of people that look at the school and the program and they're not quite ready to forgive.
The layout of this book is so magnetic. It's almost like I can hear their voices. What made you decide to do it this way?
I had covered the program in in its heyday in the 80s when I was there on campus. And I had moved on to work in magazines in New York. So those guys had no idea who I was. I still had friends who covered the team, and they were able to kind of introduce me to some of the players when I first wanted to do this. But I wasn't in any position to kind of sell my house and move my family to State College for, 2 years to kind of do the reporting. And so I felt like I needed some way to kind of set those players at ease. They had been burned by the national media in 2011. And so I felt like oral history was the way to do it. It was basically saying, hey, look, this story is not going to come out in my words. It's going to come out in your words. And I want to tell your story. And I hope you will trust me to do that. That's kind of the initial instinct. But I also have to say that I had done a little bit with oral history, and I love the fact that when you got to key moments, right, and that 4 overtime game against Michigan, when you talk about the 21-point rally against Wisconsin in that Big Ten championship game, the block, key kick block in the Ohio State game in 2016. I love the tick-tock that happens, right, when you're kind of jumping from one voice to the other, from one perspective. I had players on the field, players on the sideline, people on the stands kind of responding to that, and oral history just lent itself brilliantly to that. You kind of really felt those moments come alive in the book.
But you know what's great about this, Chris, though, is that this is not just a Penn State book. This is a book where somebody who is a Tar Heel or a UCLA Bruin, they're going to read this book, and it's not. In other words, it's not so lopsided in the way where it's all Penn State. No, this is an every person kind of book.
Yeah, and I thank you for saying that, but I agree with you. It's first of all, like the fact that you could find a story with any inspiration, right, and all that horror that happened in 2011, the monstrosity of those crimes that Jerry Sandusky committed. But for me, I latched onto right away just the fact that these were, we're talking about 18, 19, 20-year-olds, right? Like I said. And I think that younger generations get bashed time and again for not being with it, right? For not having the courage or the kind of strength or the grit. These guys exhibited that like every single day. I knew that I had a great story in 2012, the way that season turned out. I knew I had a great story in 2016. I had to write about 2014, 2015, right? 2013 as well. So there were 3 years in there when they were losing, right? They never had a losing record, but they were losing games that they would have won in the past. And I need to find a way to kind of tell that story. And really, what came through was that these guys were, even in the midst of all that, they were able to get up and go to work every single day just because they believed in that program. They believed in that idea of success with honor. And that might have not be what Jerry Sandusky stood for. I'm not sure that even those sort of grown-ups in the administration and the board of trustees kind of stood for that to the degree they would like, but you can't question it in those players, right? They brought their full heart to trying to restore the program. They believed deeply in the value of that program, and they were willing to kind of risk everything in a lot of ways. They were risking their reputations. They were risking their football futures, right? They didn't know if the program was going to be around in 6 months. And I think for guys that had NFL aspirations, they put all of that on the line to kind of suit up and play Penn State football. And as a fan, as an alum, I have great respect for that.
It's a book of how your voice can become active. It can change things. And when these guys came forward and said it is about everybody who built this, and I mean, it's so inspirational in the way that you can look at your own life and see that. I mean, this book should have come with a yellow highlighter. There's so many things inside this book that are so important to everybody's personal challenges in life.
Yeah, and that came out time and again. I was reporting this book in the heart of the pandemic, so working remotely like all of us were, was a time when you were kind of scared to go outside of your home because you didn't know what was happening,
exactly.
Right? People were afraid of sort of catching COVID at that point. And I would, do my work day and then have an interview set up in the evening with these guys. And again, just found it so inspiring. They were so thoughtful, so smart, believed so deeply in what they had done and the significance of that. And to listen to them speak in their voices and tell their stories night after night was, for me, remarkably inspiring. And I thought there was a good story in here, like I said, but I knew it when I heard those guys, when I heard what they had to say. And it really does show, if you use your voice, right, and you put yourself to something that you deeply believe in, great things happen.
Absolutely. And it comes at such a great time because we need voices right now, and this book really does provide that. But let me ask you a question here, though. In the way of when they took it public, when they had that inside their heart, that what they were going to do, I can't imagine what the naysayers were doing to them. I mean, we were now in a social media world. What were the emails? What were the text messages? What were the things on social media that they were saying to them?
Yeah, well, some of these guys had to kind of stop paying attention to that. I mean, there were
Wow.
people that thought that they were molested by Jerry Sandusky. I mean, he hadn't been there for 10 programs. These kids were like in elementary school the
Yep.
last time that Jerry Sandusky had coached for the program. So they had no idea who he was. So there were people that were saying that they were victims of this. There were people that were saying that they were heartless, I guess, for pushing forward, that Penn State deserved the death penalty. There was a lot of heat when they were sort of on the road, right? People shouting at them from behind the benches, right? So and I wrote a brief piece. I had a friend from Esquire that reached out in the days after the scandal broke to see if there was something I wanted to write about. And I kind of wrote about the Joe Paterno I knew in the 1980s, when that program was in its heyday. I saw what happened with those players that came in and played for him when they came in as freshmen. And as they left as bright young men before leaving the program. And I wrote, that it would be a tragedy if all of that was lost, but noted the fact that, the Joe Paterno I knew wouldn't have accepted the, hey, I reported to my superior and I ignored it after that. I let it go. I didn't think he lived up even to his own standard there. But I tell you this story because in the hours after that story was posted online, my Facebook feed was just littered with people who were, basically kind of pushing back against me. The heat was so intense that I was kind of like, oh, maybe this wasn't a great idea, right, for me to go on the record with a story like this. So for those players that kind of stepped forward, I knew like they were right in the belly of the beast, right? They were going to be facing the national media. They're going to be facing, angry crowds in the months going forward, and yet they were still willing to kind of come forward and say, hey, this is important. This is an important moment in this program. This idea of success with honor is important, and we're going to kind of do what it takes to bring the program back.
The importance of this book right now in this place where we are is it's a huge one of a kind. And the reason why I say that is because for the past couple of weeks, all I've done is interviews with people about college hazing, getting students ready for hazing. And yet here comes your book, Men in White, and it has a positive about the universities. I mean, these people, they took on the fight and they didn't have the flight. In other words, they didn't run away. They knew what they needed to do. And that's why this book is so important right now.
Absolutely. My son was, I think, 11 or 12 when, in 2012, when 2011, when it sort of first broke, and became a Penn State fan. I tried to get him like from birth, draw him into it. But he became a Penn State fan like right during the stretch that is recorded in the book. And I could not have asked for better role models. You look at guys like Michael Mauti, who stepped forward and said, had that quote about the one man, not tearing the program down. You look at Christian Hackenberg, who had committed to the program, and then the NCAA sanctions came down, and he stayed committed to that program. You got guys like Saquon Barkley and Trace McSorley, who are not only awesome on the football field, but the moment the games were over over on the sidelines, sort of signing autographs and speaking so thoughtfully about the program to TV and to radio interviews. And I was like, you couldn't ask for, as I said, better role models for a child. And that really resonated with me.
Is this book your Fleetwood Mac Rumors or the Eagles Hotel California? In other words, it is so powerful. It's like, what's next, Chris? I mean, come on. I mean, the way that you write and the way that you present it to us. I mean, this is the top of the mountain. But then again, knowing you, it's just a rolling hill.
No, brother, you don't know how true that is. I've been trying to think about what book 2 would be, and it is a pretty high bar. It's very difficult. I would like it to kind of be bigger than this one, but I would love, to tell another story that's that inspiring. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to kind of put those two things together. This really ended up being, in many ways, sort of like a perfect storm. I went into it thinking, hey, if I can draw connect the dots between that NCAA sanctions announcement in 2012, Big Ten championship game in 2016, there might be a cool story in here. And I was really, could not have asked for a better story, actually, in those middle years. So, yeah, I hope there's another story out there like that. Anybody has one, please reach out to me. I would love to hear it, but it would be tough to top this one.
In a very creative way, is this not the national championship trophy, this book? And the reason why I say that is because I don't see any plaques. I don't see any trophies for those that stood up and made their way through this.
I think it is for those guys. I mean, I think, I will say this, when that 2012 season ended, they put that year up on the Ring of Honor at Penn State. And those, teams that are acknowledged on that Ring of Honor have either won national championships, Big Ten championships, or have been undefeated. So for a team with what would have been a lackluster record in any other year at Penn State to be up there, I think for them, that moment I know was like, there were a lot of tears shed. So I feel like that's really, that to them is their trophy. But I think a lot of these guys went through this ordeal, came out the other side. I think there are some people that kind of appreciate it, but I don't think the world at large understands what they did. And this really is their story. It's in their words. And I'm just glad that, they trusted me to sort of try and tell it with care and detail. And I'm hoping that people kind of read it and understand, like, this is a significant campaign that these guys went through. It was a 5-year ordeal for many of them to come out the other side. And they deserve to be recognized for that, for what they put into it.
Because I believe that what we do today affects the next 7 generations, I have to ask, what are they doing today? Can you imagine what they're doing with their communities today, knowing what they did for their university? I mean, it was their own little place where they built it together. Now, what are they doing for the rest of the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing that I love about this story also, is that, there were a decent number of these guys that went on to like NFL careers, although, the NFL career is only sort of 3 or 4 years, right, for most players. But the vast majority of them kind of went on and got jobs, right? So they're working in construction. They're working in, Joe Julius, the kicker, was sort of like working for a car sales, he was a car dealer. So they went on to kind of regular jobs. But some of them are like coaching high school football. Many of them still run sort of football camps. A lot of them still sort of work with youth as mentors and role models. So, these are guys that went back into, into life as the average human beings like you or I, right? And they continue to contribute to society. So you got to tip your hat to them for that.
One of the things that really inspires me about this book is the fact that here was this major storm, these gigantic ocean waves crashing against the shore, and yet there was a little ripple. They created a ripple that became something that changed. That to me is so inspiring, that they were able to have the strength to create a ripple in the middle of a storm.
Yeah, and I don't know they fully understood that that's how it was going to work in the end. I think they kind of stepped forward, like I said, in front of those TV cameras to kind of, to have that press conference. I think I knew right away how remarkable that was. As somebody who's covered the program, first of all, even a year earlier, 2 years earlier under Joe Paterno, there's no way that players get to call their own press conference, right? Go before ESPN TV cameras to kind of talk to the world. So that was, struck me as really remarkable from the start. But you got to remember in 2012, they lost those first 2 games of the year, right? They lost to Ohio. And they lost to Virginia, 2 teams they wouldn't have had trouble with before. So things could have collapsed right then and there, too. And they had to kind of find the strength to rebound. And that in the book, you will just see that time and time again, they had to kind of find the strength to kind of step forward, right? They had to rely on walk-ons and true freshmen. And players that, there's one guy that literally almost plucked out of the stands. He was a freshman, a long snapper that they found in tryouts. He had watched the first few games of the season in the stands with the other students. So that's what it took to bring the program back. They were playing against Ohio State and Michigan, teams that were stacked with players with full scholarships. Team like Wisconsin, and they were actually able to kind of compete with those programs. And that shows you like how big the heart was on those players.
Wow. Speaking of heart, I'm so glad that you listened to your heart and you put this book together as we grow into another brand new season of college football, dude.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad that you see it that way and really appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk about it.
Well, you got to come back anytime in the future, Chris. The door is always going to be open for you.
I appreciate it, Errol. Thank you very much. I'd love to do that.
You be brilliant today, okay, sir?
All right, bud. You too.
Thank you. Hello and good morning.
Hey, Errol. How are you?
Fantastic. How about you, dude?
I'm doing well. Nice to talk to you again.
Dude, when you said that you were writing a book about Fleetwood Mac, I was expecting to talk to you in a year or so. I mean, I didn't realize that it was ready to rock right now.
Well, no. I haven't written about one. I haven't written a book about him. I'm just talking about it. I just did kind of like a media, just a kind of a publicity thing to just draw attention to it. It's kind of an important date in their history, and two major things happened. So that's kind of what we're doing.
I love that, because my last book, what I did was as I wrote the chapters, I went onto social media and I talked about it just so I could get people to kind of go, whoa, I got to read this book when it's finally done.
Yeah, for sure.
It's utilizing the tools that are sitting right here in front of us, Scott.
Absolutely. It's a lot of them.
Wow. So what is your connection to Fleetwood Mac?
Well, I've been a big fan for as long as I can remember. They've been around longer than I have. They when I was doing my tour for the Mamas and the Papas book, I got a lot of people telling me that comparing it to Daisy Jones and the Six, which was loosely kind of based off of Fleetwood Mac's story. So, the Fleetwood Mac, the Mamas and the Papas were kind of the architect of the dysfunctional married group or with love interests in each other, and Fleetwood Mac kind of took it to a whole other level.
I've been with Ken Colley, and he told me what it was like to be in the studio with Fleetwood Mac when they were putting together Rumors.
Oh, I bet you he has some pretty interesting stories to tell.
Oh, I hope you reach out to him, dude, because, he is such a storyteller in the way of what it was like when things were not going so well.
Right, and that was a tough time for him. There was, I don't think they were even really talking to each other. There was just a lot of emotion, a lot of drama, a lot of hurt feelings. But, I think they were able to put all that energy into that album, and into the sessions and the songs that they wrote. And, man, they gave us one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah. Does it shock you that there are still people around that believe that Rumors was that overnight sensation, that here, who was this new band that was taking over? And yet, as a fan, oh, hell no. I've been a Fleetwood Mac fan all the way back to Peter Green.
Well, yeah, I remember when I was a kid going to like Woolworths and stores where they sold cassettes and seeing like, the best of British blues volume 7. And, you would see people on there like Graham Bond and Long John Baldry and John Mayall. And you would see Fleetwood Mac. And I remember being like, Fleetwood Mac, what are they doing on here? But they were, they started off as a blues band, 4 guys. And then they added Danny Kerwin a little while later. And they just, played straight up Chicago blues for a couple of years. And, then kind of moved into a more FM rock sound that garnered them a little more interest.
Oh, my God. You must have been looking at my notes, because one of my questions is, do you think that FM radio...
Oh, for sure, yeah. It was the right time. It was, FM radio was kind of starting to move away from just album-oriented rock stations where they played entire sides of an album, or the long version of Light My Fire or The End by the Doors, and to mimic more of the AM top 40 stations. And, Fleetwood Mac was also played there too back in the 70s. So, by the time the 80s came along and MTV and all that stuff, they were right in there, man. They moved into that arena swiftly.
Wow. I miss those days when they would play the full albums, because, and I've got Alexa now, and all I do is I say, Alexa, play The Elder from Kiss. I want to start it from the beginning all the way to the end, or Frampton Comes Alive, because I want to experience full albums again in my life. Yeah,
they are. It's kind of a lost art form. And I don't know. I don't know what the current hit makers are like, because I really don't listen to them. There are a lot of like a subgenre called retro soul, and there's a lot of new young artists there, and they really sound like a lot of the music from the 60s and the 70s, and like Mayer Hawthorne, and he puts out an album and it's great from start to finish. So there's good music out there, good albums. You just kind of have to look for it a little bit harder now.
How come we don't know the story of Jeremy Spencer?
He was kind of he was kind of a strange guy. He was one of the original members of Fleetwood Mac, a straight up blues guy, but he also liked 1950s music, like rockabilly and Buddy Holly and stuff like that. So he put out a solo album in 1970 while he was still a member with the Fleetwood Mac, and it was kind of weird. It was kind of all over the place. And then, I think after Peter Green left, he started to have a breakdown of his own. One of the many members of Fleetwood Mac to have a breakdown, and they were in Los Angeles getting ready to play the Whiskey A Go-Go in 1971. And he said, I'm going out to get a magazine, and went to a bookstore and never came back. And they found him a couple of days later in a religious cult called the Children of God, where he stayed. And he put out an album with them, and then a couple of years after Buckingham Nicks joined Fleetwood Mac, he put out an album called Flea by the Jeremy Spencer Band, and he was a good imitator, and he really kind of imitated the sound of Fleetwood Mac with Stevie and Lindsey, and there's kind of an interesting album.
Wow. You're going to think I'm a freak, but as a kid in Billings, Montana, I promised myself to never see Fleetwood Mac in concert because I never wanted to lose that feeling of discovering them. And the thing is that just a couple of weeks ago, I watched my first concert thanks to streaming television, and I was blown away by it. I've robbed my childhood of something that was so special.
Yeah, that wasn't a good move, man. You should have done it. I saw them live, I guess, back in 2014 when Christine McVie rejoined them because I didn't want to see them without her.
Yeah.
They had been touring for a number of years, just the four of them, and she had retired. But she came out of retirement for a number of years there with them and toured, and it was great. I saw them in Philadelphia, and it was. To see Lindsey Buckingham just shred that guitar, and I'm So Afraid, it was incredible.
Oh. I'll tell you, one of the greatest albums that I have heard from any member of Fleetwood Mac was the last one from Lindsey, where he worked side by side with Christine. To this day, I can't get enough of her final moments.
Yeah, that's a great album. I got to see that. I got to see them live too. The Buckingham McVie tour. I got them to see them in New York City at the Beacon Theater, and they put on a really, really great show. And it was an interesting combination. But then they rejoined Fleetwood Mac, and then a couple of years later, Lindsey gets fired permanently.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of strife in that group. Yeah, I think it emanates from Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham's relationship.
Yeah, but see, that's what I loved about watching them in concert was the fact that you could see it when they would look at each other while singing the vocals and trying to harmonize. It's like, oh, you guys are still fighting. God love you. God love you.
I know. It's crazy. Still carrying that torch to some level.
So what did Mick Fleetwood see in Lindsey and Stevie? Was it the songwriting, or was it, oh my God, here is this beautiful woman, I can market this?
Well, he went to, they were on the verge of breaking up in 1973 and 74. They had a really tough year in 73 with, they had a guy named Bob Weston who was on guitar, and he ended up having an affair with Mick Fleetwood's wife. And that broke them up. And then there was this whole fake Fleetwood Mac they sent out because the tour got canceled. That's a whole other story. But needless to say, after the dust settled, Bob Welch, who was the guitarist, the main guitarist, he didn't want to be part of it anymore. He was getting ready to leave. So Mick Fleetwood was looking for a place to record their next album in Los Angeles. And he went to this studio, and the engineer played him an example of a song that was recorded there. It was off the Buckingham Nicks album. It was called Frozen Love. And he was just blown away by Lindsey's playing. And I think Lindsey was either around the premises there or on the premises, and he introduced him to Mick, and Mick was just blown away by him, and he asked him to come join the band. And he said, "I'll only do it if Stevie, my girlfriend, can join." And he really wanted Lindsey, so he said yes. And that was a gamble that really paid off because that investment came back to, 100-fold for him.
Wow. So the top two lists of my favorite Fleetwood Mac songs, The Chain and Tusk. But yet when I say Tusk, people go, oh, come on. Why didn't people fall in love with that song? Or even that whole album?
It may be the horns are just a little bit too much. I don't know.
That's what I love. When it kicks in toward the end, holy crap, I live for that moment, even to this day.
My brother's a big fan of that song, and he always. I remember when we were kids, MTV would always play that video of them playing it with the USC marching band, and he would always get excited about that one. I'm more of a Gypsy. I love Tango in the Night. That's such a great album, and I can listen to that from start to finish at any time.
Wow. So when it comes to Fleetwood Mac, I mean, there's such a beautiful story there, and yet it's a reckless story, and yet you've got Stevie Nicks, who's in the Hall of Fame twice. There's a diamond in every rough piece of stone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is, and she's one of those exclusive members that's in there for two. Like Neil Young, I think he's in there for two. He's in there for three, and his solo stuff, Buffalo Springfield, and Crosby, Stills, and Nash and Young, and so she's part of an exclusive club. But it's funny because she doesn't have the strongest voice in the world, but it's very enticing, and people love it. I love it, and she never really overextends it, and she hasn't really lost it either. It's still kind of there. Definitely not as as you get older, it's not going to be as strong as it was when you were younger. But the way her style, she can live up to it when she has to.
Led Zeppelin was known for their mystique. I think Fleetwood Mac has that as well, because at one point in time, all we had were album covers and pictures.
Yeah, for sure. I heard Stevie Nicks say that too, because when she I saw an interview with her one time where she was talking about when she joined the band. She didn't really know much about them. They weren't really big here in the United States, and their popularity in England had really waned. And so she went back to their back catalog and listened from start to finish up to the point, to the last album, Heroes Are Hard to Find, before they joined. And she said that same thing. There was just this overarching mysticism. It kind of came from Peter Green and Bob Welch's guitar playing, and the some of the song lyrics and stuff like that. And she and Lindsay really kind of picked up the torch and kept that going.
I totally forgot that Bob Welch was part of that. I remember when I first found out that Bob was part of it, and it was because of Casey Kasem. Because Bob Welch had a song on his own. He goes, former Fleetwood Macer, Bob Welch. I'm going, what the hell are you talking about, Casey?
Yeah, there's a lot of mysteries to that group that you discover. In fact, his big hit, Sentimental Lady, was originally recorded on the Fleetwood Mac Bare Trees album. So the version we hear is a re-recording from 1977. That was his big hit version.
Wow. Don't you love the fact that Stevie Nicks has embraced Miley Cyrus? I mean, the interview that I heard with Miley was that Stevie talked to her about having an alto voice and how to work that alto voice. And now we've got, Flowers from Miley Cyrus. And I'm thinking Stevie Nicks had to have something to do with that, because you've become this giant legend in your own time.
Yeah, she's very talented, and I've heard a few songs of hers, that are really good. And I even saw her and Jimmy Fallon doing a takeoff of Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers doing "Islands in the Stream," and they sang it really well. They both dressed the part too, and she nailed it, man. She's a great singer, and she does have a good voice. So
when you put this book together, are you going to reach out to the members of the band, or how are you going to do things?
I mean, if I ever get around to that one, I for sure will. But time is, we're running out of time. I'm getting to the point where the people I have to write about are passing away. Even when I wrote the Mamas and the Papas book, 3 of the 4 of them had died already, and I was a nobody from nowhere with no literary agent or publisher, and reaching out to Michelle Phillips, even though I tried, was an impossibility. But she put out a book on her own, an autobiography in the 80s that told her side of the story, and that was a big help. So if I get around to doing that Fleetwood Mac one, I imagine I would have to do it the same way.
You and I are on the same page, because my wife and I were just having a conversation yesterday about Ozzy Osbourne as well as Rod Stewart. Both of them are not well, and I just keep going, please let me have one more conversation, please. because I swear to God that Scott, that you and I are historians in the way of music.
Yeah, and look, they're still writing books about Beethoven and Bach and the Roman Empire and the Catholic Church and its history. So this is an era, and we have a lot more at our disposal. A lot of those people, they only have, if you want to write about the Civil War, you have to go out and study old manuscripts and scrolls and writings. We at least have books and mass media to help us out.
Would you say that Fleetwood Mac is a great representative of perseverance or incredible marketing?
I think I think it's both. Obviously, there's perseverance because there was many times, especially in those early years, where that group could have just folded. But thankfully, with Mick Fleetwood and John McVie, they didn't, and they kept on going because those are the only two that have been there from start to finish. Go figure. Fleetwood and Mac are the two stalwarts of that group. I think that's really lent itself to their endurance, and they picked up some really talented people along the way, and they always seem, even though they fight, they always seem to get back together again. But we lost Christine McVie last year, so there won't be a full reunion of the classic lineup ever again.
Okay, you just said something that all my years of Fleetwood Mac I've never heard before. You said Fleetwood and Mac. Are we talking John McVie being the Mac?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I had no idea, dude. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's that was, and it's funny because Peter Green named him that in hopes that John McVie would join them, because Peter and John McVie were both, and Mick Fleetwood were all in John Mayall's Blues Breakers, and Mick Fleetwood ended up getting fired, and Peter Green left to form his band, and he wanted John McVie to join him because he liked the way he and Mick sounded together. And so he named the group Fleetwood Mac in hopes that it would kind of cajole him. And it didn't at first. John McVie was happy where he was, but then John Mayall started bringing in horns and wanted to go kind of in a jazzy direction, and John was like, okay, I think I'll go join Peter and Mick, and the Mac finally did join Fleetwood Mac, and yep, it does stand for McVie.
And then they did Tusk. I can't imagine what he went through. Oh my God.
Yeah, right, really.
So what about us crazy old radio people that always got on there to talk on a song intro and said Eric Clapton was once a member of Fleetwood Mac? Is that true?
No, Eric Clapton was never a member of Fleetwood
Mac.
Mac.
I've lied to people so many times.
He was a member. He was a member of John Mayall's Blues Breakers, and Peter Green replaced him.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, because there's I think it's called the Green List that has all the bands that are related, and so we saw Eric Clapton on there associated with Fleetwood Mac. So now I understand that he was in a different part of the routing system.
Yeah. He helped lay the groundwork, because if he had not left, Peter Green would not have joined, and we would never have Fleetwood Mac.
All right, another moment that I would get on the air and I would talk about, and you're going to know more about this. I swear I read in Mick Fleetwood's book that he can't play the same drum beat twice. That he is he's difficult on himself. Is that true? Does he have a learning disability there?
Well, he's never been like fully trained. Like, he's not a trained drummer. He just kind of taught himself, and he has a weird, crazy style that just I think also in that book he also said that people would study him and they couldn't duplicate it because he's just kind of all over all over the place. It's kind of like Van Morrison. Like, Van Morrison never sings the same song the same way twice,
So I challenge you to create a podcast, and as you go through this journey, give us little niblets of what you're doing, what you experience, your oh wow moments, and things that we can have, so that when the book comes out, we're going to go, holy crap, it's finally here.
Yeah, there you go. I do want to do a podcast. I just got to build up my audience a little bit before I do that.
Wow. You promise me you're going to come back when this book is released?
Absolutely.
All right. Dude, you're always filled with so much love for music. I love that about you.
Yeah, I do. It's been with me all my life, man. I love it. It drives my wife crazy, I think, but because she thinks the music is the other woman.
Yeah, there you go. Well, please come back and you be brilliant today, okay?
Thanks, Arrow.
Thank you. Hello and good morning.
Hi, how are you?
Absolutely fantastic.
This is Just Isaac calling.
Just Isaac, I have been waiting to talk with you because I'm just excited about what you're doing with your creativity.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Well,
so this is a radio interview?
This is, yes, sir.
Okay. I just wanted to. I'm getting a lot of calls, but this one is important to me, because I talked to Sasha, and she says that you're really good people, Wow. And I look forward to this interview.
Putting this book together, I got to be honest with you, Just Isaac, and that is that I was doing interviews with people about human trafficking long before it became headlines, because people would not talk about it. And so I would meet with the authors and we would talk about it just to get the word out there. And now you've got a book that really puts it out there. And I'm just so proud of you for doing this.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate that. It's been something that I've been working with for years as well. It's just that I've just now, come with the book, the material. But I've been working with inner city youth and people that have been trafficked for a number of years now.
This story is about two sisters who are trained fighters, and they're walking into darkness. I mean, they've got to rely on their knowledge, and you being a boxer, you understand that journey.
Right. Yes, sir. So let me ask you a question. Is this the official interview, or we already started, or?
Well, I don't call them interviews. I call them conversations.
Okay. So we are live now.
We are having some fun, sir.
Okay.
So the
all right.
So how did the story come into being?
How did the story come to be? Okay, so what it was, I was writing a fight film, and it was fictional, in the realm of boxing. And what ended up happening was, there was a day, I'm not gonna lie to you, I was just meditating and in prayer, and all of a sudden it came to me. Mm-hmm. I saw all these children in my mind. I saw these children, and I visualized children all across the world that have had their innocence stolen. I visualized, kids being chained up and women being ripped from their families, and I had flashes of some of the things that I've read. I've had access to some of the most sensitive files in the world, having the opportunity to work with inner city youth and children and even abused women. So throughout the years, all of a sudden I just had this flash of everything, and I said, this is what I'm supposed to be writing about. Yep. Without breaching anybody's confidentiality or, respecting people's privacy. This project, I really believe it's timely, and I think that there needs to be an awareness. That there's a violation of human rights that are happening on a regular. I mean, right now, somebody is being trafficked. Yep. Somebody has had their freedom stolen from them, taken from them. In this novel, this book, the characters are real people in their real situations. And even when I was writing it, there were times I had a difficult time. If you have any type of feelings or any type of emotional connection to humanity, it will break even the strongest person, to cause tears to fall and to have empathy and to do something about it. I've always been the type of person to do something about something that's being done that can be done differently. Yeah.
I got to be honest with you here, Just Isaac, and that is that because of this story, and while I was doing the research for this book, one of the things that really was planted deep inside my heart was the word compassion. So I did a lot of research on that word compassion. It takes, you receive it, and then you've got to give it away. And that's where a lot of people go wrong. They're not giving it. They'll sit there and say, I've got compassion for you. Well, do something about it then. And you're doing something about it. You are a beacon of light to me right now.
Right. And it's all by the grace of God, because I'm going to tell you, God's perfect love is what casteth out all fear. Mm-hmm. And I was a bit, hesitant to write this story. But my previous novel, which was Think Fearlessly, my previous book, Think Fearlessly, or self-help book, I had to come to grips and live by my own words. And I appreciate, your encouragement. Yes, compassion. I mean, we can have passion. Passion is important too, but compassion is something that the world needs more of.
Mm-hmm.
The world needs more compassion. There are a lot of passionate people, but compassion, there's the element or the component of love. And, I think that when we have compassion, there's a reciprocal flow. There's people that are being exploited and abused, victimized. Lives are being destroyed. Communities are even being affected by what's transpiring, and we need to have compassion. And compassion includes having an awareness and educating ourselves and understanding what's going on and doing something about it.
Mm. It comes at such a great time in the way of here in the States. One of the things that's happening is that they're finally stepping forward saying the missing indigenous women, we've got to do something about that because they're being trafficked. And and here comes your book, Traffic Fight. And I'm going, oh my God, it's happening. We're finally starting to talk about this.
Yes. And these are crimes.
Yes.
This is criminal activity. Human trafficking is a criminal activity that fuels off organized crime and corruption. It's not suitable. I don't believe it's suitable for a human being to even want to participate. But I understand that it's because of the love of money,
mm-hmm.
or it's because of a brokenness within an individual that would drive them to do such a hideous crime. But when we have healing inside, I believe that a lot of the things that are transpiring, the criminal activity such as the sex trade, I believe that these are individuals who are broken
mm-hmm.
as well themselves and who have a love for money. I don't believe that money's evil. Money is not evil, but I believe that money can answer all things. Whenever we need things, money can give us those things. But money, I believe that it's not evil in itself, but it's the love of money that's the root to all evil. There's the love of money that will cause a person to abandon values. And you talked about it earlier, compassion.
Yeah.
We need to have compassion.
Yeah.
Our compassion as human beings should override the dollar bill. Our compassion, what I find as well too with money is whatever lives within us is amplified.
Yes.
It's amplified. So if a person is selfish, they'll become more selfish. If a person is giving, they'll become more giving. It's amplified. Whatever it is that's within us, money has a tendency of bringing that out. And I believe that one of the greatest incentives, when I use the word great, it doesn't mean that it's good, but one of the greatest incentives that would drive someone to do such a hideous crime is money.
Yep.
And that's sad.
Mm-hmm. When you write,
and there's a long-term consequence for that.
When you write a powerful book like this, one of the things that are you setting up a website where people who are trapped can reach out to you? Because this book is powerful in a way to where it's going to get into the lives of those that are on the run or being traded.
Yes. The book itself, it actually has information within the book itself of how to get help, resources for help, and what to do if you suspect human trafficking. It has a section in it where it talks about how to protect yourself and others from human trafficking. And justisaac.com is where everything is centralized for me. But it has, within the book, it has, signs what to look for, what to watch for. Like a lack of self-control or fear and anxiety, unusual living conditions and behavior changes, and how to be informed and stay aware, And it's a common factor. I think that we all have an instinct. We have intuition, and intuition is a conscious awareness of vibrations. So when we sense something, they can call us paranoid at times, but it's better to be safe.
Yep.
It's better to be safe.
Yep.
Do
you believe that the average person does not understand what trafficking is, and if they did see it right there in front of them, they would just keep walking, and that's got to stop?
Yes, absolutely. And there's as I mentioned before, there's resources to help, like the National Human Trafficking Hotline. I'll give you that number right now. It's 1-800 or 1-888-373-7888. That's in the book. This book, it actually, the characters that are within the book, these are people that are living normal lives, and their lives have changed completely. And what it does is it exposes the horrendous plight, the things that individuals are going through in the world right now. These are families that are considered normal families. I mean, every family has a bit of dysfunctional behavior. But I will tell you that, as you mentioned earlier, you won't expect it.
Mm-hmm.
These are people that didn't expect it. And we need to be aware. We need to, arm ourselves and be aware, because awareness is key. That's what's going to help us to overcome this thing.
Wow.
The global crisis.
I'm just so proud of you for being this way. I'm so proud of you for being so open and for now. Are you going to go on a speaking engagement or anything like that so that you can help get that word out there even further?
Yeah, I am accepting. I have been speaking. I just was on the West Coast, and I spoke out on the West Coast. I was in Vegas, and I got some more calls in the United States and in New York State. But I am open to doing more speaking in regards to the human trafficking, for sure.
Wow, you got
bringing a greater awareness, and I'm also a motivational speaker.
I can hear that. I can hear that.
Thank you. I just my whole objective for life and for living is to serve.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm called to serve. I'm called to help people. That's my objective. Life is not just about money. Life is definitely not about notoriety and fame. If I could do this without showing my face, if I could do this without putting my name out, I would.
Yeah.
But this comes with the territory.
Yep.
And I'm a fighter, and I'm fighting the good fight of faith. And I know that I'm not alone. I know that there's someone on this line is listening to this, and you feel that you want to be a part of this movement, the traffic fight movement, where and this is a series. This is volume 1 of the series, Fight the Shadows. And what's happening is, I believe that through an awareness, there are going to be invisible chains that are broken.
Yes.
On people's lives.
Yep.
And I just, I really feel that this is a time and this is a season where we need to take a stand, because freedom, there's nothing more valuable than freedom.
Yeah. You got to come back to the show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you, Just Isaac.
Thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. I appreciate the time.
You bet.
And I really hope that someone, if someone may be listening to this and you may have encountered, or you may know someone that has encountered it, I just want you to know that there is help. That there is help for you, or there's help for those that you're connected to, and you're connected to those people for a reason. And don't just keep silent, but do something about it. Speak about it. Connect with the people you need to connect with.
Oh, I love where your heart is. You be brilliant today, okay, Just Isaac? I love saying your name, Just Isaac. Just Isaac. I love it. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You bet. Bye, guy.
Thanks.